Whenever Seferin Fiala and Veronica Franz are interviewed about their Austrian horror film Ich, they claim that it's about loss of trust, miscommunication, and identity crises. Naturally, a director's intentions are important, but I would like to claim that the film runs deeper. Not that the two writers are lying, but that a significant core of Austrian culture is threaded throughout this film, whether the directors know it or not. Ich translates to I see, which is basically the Austrian version of I spy. The English release, however, is entitled Goodnight, Mommy. It tells the tale of two twin brothers, Elias and Lucas, and the return of their mother from reconstructive surgery. Because her face is hidden beneath bandages, and because she is uncharacteristically cold to them, they believe that she is an imposter. The movie escalates into a gut-wrenching, cover-your-eyes bout of vicious behavior and, spoiler alert, the boys torture and kill their own mother. Now, it all sounds painfully grotesque, and, mind you, it is, but the film is too symbolically laden to be written off as a thriller. Austrian artists are infamous for something called feel-bad culture, or, in this case, feel-bad cinema. Professors and authors, Dostoevsky and Speck, refer to this genre as New Austrian film, and they claim that it's an effort to break the illusions of the official Austria and its long avoidance of dealing with its fascist past. With the enthusiastic support of most of the population, Nazi soldiers were welcomed during World War II, and Austria was incorporated into Germany. In the same year occurred one tragedy among many, the Night of Broken Glass, in which Jewish synagogues and businesses were burned and destroyed throughout Vienna and Austria. Yet, after the war, many Austrians claimed innocence and that they were simply victims of Hitler's regime. The rejection of this victimization is the stem of Austrian feel-bad culture. People were tired of ignoring the role they played in World War II, and they wanted to explore the guilt that had been so long suppressed. Feel-bad literature and film is harshly realistic, and it breaks the traditional norm. It's often without a happy ending, and, frankly, it can be rather depressing. Let's look back to Goodnight, Mommy. Elias! Not exactly sunshine and rainbows on the happy ending spectrum. And with all of the lengthy camera shots of facial expression, physical reaction, and cringeworthy gore, harsh realism is definitely fulfilled. Now, you might think that this particular piece of feel-bad cinema has little to do with post-World War II Austrian attitudes. It does seem like a bit of a stretch to start with, but this is where things get really interesting. For a quick moment, tuck away Goodnight, Mommy and feel-bad cinema, and let's look at The Sound of Music, the original Austrian version, of course, entitled The Trapp Family. This is the highly successful 1956 film that inspired the musical, which inspired the Julie Andrews version we Americans all know so well. It's a great example of the Heimatfilm genre, a word derived from Heimat, which translates roughly into homeland, with all of its good and bad connotations. Heimatfilms, or homeland films, were post-war filmic representations that implied Austrian innocence. According to authors Peterson and Lyon, these films depict an intact, guiltless, eternal Austria through the prolific imagery of natural settings. They focus on rolling hills, the Alps, the beauty of nature, because though the urban areas were wrought with war and turmoil, the natural landscape of Austria remained just as beautiful as it ever was. And of course, nature is neutral, so as said by Heimatfilm theorist Maria Fritzsche, using an unspoilt and seemingly apolitical Heimat reconfigured the nation which was tainted by Nazi ideology. These Heimat films rekindled a sense of pride in the homeland, purified the nation from the violence of war, and alleviated collective guilt. So, take The Sound of Music, and all of its cheerful glory, and put it up next to... Yeah, not exactly the same thing. But if you watch this movie with Heimatfilm tropes in mind, you see those tropes, but turned completely upside down. First of all, Fritzsche says that Heimat is intrinsically connected to the rural, and Goodnight, Mommy focuses on outdoor rural scenes. However, instead of using these scenes to soothe the viewer, they add to the feeling of dread that escalates throughout the film. Fritzsche also notes that Heimatfilms usually reject modernity altogether. When the twin boys must walk miles to reach a seedy town, modernity isn't quite what comes to mind. Yet the decor of their mother's house is trendy and new and oddly out of place. Also, Heimatfilms cherish faithfulness, honesty, and humility, which are all traits the boys hold true to their old mother as they torture and interrogate the alleged imposter. Still don't believe me? Guess what the opening scene of Goodnight Mommy is? That right there is the closing scene of The Trapp Family, which, don't forget, is a very famous Heimatfilm. And the closing scene of Goodnight Mommy? After all of this,
Elias! Elias! Elias!
the movie ends like this. If that doesn't clue into a commentary on the Heimatfilm, and the denial of Austrian guilt for World War II, then I'm not sure what does. Sure, the two directors may not have purposefully implanted such a deep historical commentary into their film, but with the right knowledge in mind, it shows blatantly through the cracks. Unfortunately, the film wasn't very successful in Austria when it was released in 2014, likely because horror films aren't very popular in Austria. But when an American company bought it and it was released here in September 2015, it created a huge splash. Naturally, the average American doesn't know much about Austrian history, so I doubt people are praising it for its uprooting of Heimatfilm norms. However, the raw, tragic story, along with all of its feel-bad cinema and literature counterparts, is shaking the traditional Western view of Austria. In our minds, Austrians are no longer frolicking through meadows and mountains in the wake of World War II. If anything, I think that Austrian culture is leaning towards reconciling with the past. Now that you've processed your mini Austrian history lesson, I'll leave you with this clip from the film. Before this moment, we thought the mother was the bad guy, but now we see that she is simply grieving for a loss that the boys refuse to believe to be true. As you watch it, consider this. Maybe the twin boys represent Heimatfilm, the outdoors, and the denial of issues, and maybe the mother represents a desire to reconcile with the past and to tell the truth. She is the feel-bad cinema and the part of Austria that wishes to repent.
Was soll das? Was soll das?
Wo ist unsere Mama?
Ich spinne. Und wie soll das wieder aufgehen?
Gar nicht. Wo ist unsere Mama?